Poshoakwa. Poshoakwa, everyone. Okay, so I have 30 minutes to tell you all about all the wonderful things that transpired. So I'm going to set a timer so I can respect your time. All right. So can we have the slide? Is the slideshow going to be up? Please. Okay, here we go. And so, again, I spent time, it was 10 days, and I was with the Pokot people of Kenya. They are a beautiful people, so welcoming, so full of love, but they're facing lots of hardships. One of the main ones being water. And so we connected with the Pokot Outreach Ministry. So that's who the Hope Water Project connects with in order to get wells to the villages. So the Pokot Outreach Ministry, they were taking us around and telling us about some of the work that they're doing. It took 2 days to get there, 20 hours of travel, which was long, but there were good movies on the plane, so I was okay. And so the first day, if we can have the slides up. Day one, the first village that we went to, these people had gotten a well 1 year and 4 months ago. And so when we went to the village, we walked in and all these kids were out there with their uniform shirts on, and they were singing for us and welcoming us. And then we had what was called a meeting. So at each village we went to, we had a meeting. And at these meetings, the Pokot Outreach Ministry team would speak to the community, they would minister, and then community members would share with us how the well has impacted them. So in this particular village, because they had a well for 1 year and 4 months, they were able to establish a school as well as a church right near the well. And so the people were sharing how now the kids are able to stay in school and how that has really blessed their community, as well as something that blessed me is that the people who were speaking, they were saying, we're so thankful for this well. We praise God for this well. But there's a village not too far away, and they still don't have water. So please pray for them. And that really blessed me because it just showed how selfless they really were. Okay. So the next thing that you're going to see is a video. And so the village that we went to, the second village we went to on the first day, they had received a well about 4 or 5 months ago. So it was still new. And the people were talking about how they're excited to begin to start a school and how the well has made the women stronger because they're not having to travel as far to get clean water. And so in the video, you'll see she was a young girl and she was so powerful. And she was just speaking about how the well has impacted her life. It's translated, so you'll be able to hear it in English. So we could go back to the video now.
She's saying she's so happy when we see you visit us in our village. Because when she thinks about water, she sees life. That when you have no water, then you are not there. Yeah, she says before the sun rises, they are out donkeys and kiragans. And then you just spend a few hours sleeping, then you wake up very early in the morning again to the river. And then sometimes you can balance between a day or two with whatever you brought with the donkeys. And now we are happy that we no longer use donkeys, and we never dreamt about having a well in the midst of our community. And now our donkeys are no longer heavy loaded. They walk all around, enjoying their pasture, and so no much to do with carrying of water. Maybe You just use them when going to the market and buy some foodstuffs, then bring with them. But we show water. She says, I also believe that I'm a little bit healthier and energetic as before because she feels like she's stronger now.
Okay, so it may be a little hard to hear, but what she was saying was that she used to have to wake up so early and take jerry cans. Those are like the yellow cans that carry water. She would have to wake up so early to get water in the morning, and then she would sleep for a few hours or do whatever, her washings and things. Then she would have to go back out to get water for the evening. And she was saying her donkeys were tired, like they were so heavy laden, and the women were tired, their backs hurt, their heads are hurting. And so now that there's a well so nearby, now she doesn't have to wake up as early or spend so much time going back and forth to get water. Also at this second village, there was a man, and he was so powerful, and he was speaking about generational poverty. And he said, because there hasn't been water in this community, there hasn't been a school, and because there hasn't been a school, there hasn't been many resources or different jobs coming into the community, and so the people are staying in poverty. And so he was saying he's hopeful that now, because we have a well now, hopefully we can start a school. Then we went to our third village on day 1, and that's the next slide. And this village needed a well repair. So their well had been down for a few months. And so these men in blue, the villagers, they refer to them as angels in blue because they're the ones that put the wells together. They're the ones that go out to repair the wells. And it was so fun just to be there waiting and watching what they do. And it probably took them like an hour, hour and a half. And they repaired the well, they fixed it up. And then the elders of the village, they came and they started to pump the well, and they were drawing up the water. And as they were drawing up the water, the women were worshiping and praising God. And then the water finally came out and everybody celebrated. And it was just a lot of fun to experience that moment with that community. Then we had day 2. And day 2 for me was probably the most impactful because day 2 was the water walk. And so we actually went to a village that did not have clean water. And at this village, we walked to where the women were going to get water. And as you can see, like I tried to capture it, but if you see behind the women, like it looks like they're just out in a field or something, but that's a riverbed. It's just there's no water. It's all dried up. And as we would drive into the villages, we would drive for like an hour to 2 hours each day into the villages, and we would pass riverbed by riverbed by riverbed by river, and none of them had water. And it was insane. Like I was like, oh my God. And so what the women would do is they would create hand wells. So they would go to a local riverbed that wasn't all the way dried up underneath, and they would dig. And as you can see in the middle, the water is brown. So after she would dig the well, she took a little cup and she siphoned off the brown water until it ran clear. Then once it ran clear, she took that water and they put it into the jerry cans, and they filled up several jerry cans, and that was water for the day. So then she would have to walk with the heavy jerry cans back to the village. But today, or this day, we were able to experience what it felt like carrying the jerry cans. Now, you guys, I am not very strong. So this experience for me, it was so humbling because, can you go to the next slide? It was so humbling to me because the walk, it wasn't like a straight shot. It was hilly, we had hills, then we had to go and cut through the bush. And it was like a mile and a half walking with this heavy water. And then in my mind, I was like, okay, even though I'm struggling, because I would hold it to the side, try to hold it on my shoulder. The women were tapping us, like, put it on your head. And we're like, we can't put it on our head. So we were going through all this and just really struggling. And the men, when they saw that I was struggling, the men were offering to help me. But in actuality, it's the women who get the water. The men don't actually help them, the women in the villages. So I would tell the men no, because I needed to experience it. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to understand what it is that they go through. And so we finally made it to the village, after a long, hot, rough walk, and we had a meeting. So that's the next slide. And during this meeting, the women were talking to us and asking us to pray for them that they would receive a well. The women also noted, they said, today it was nice that our men were with us, but they aren't usually. It's the women who get the water. Our backs are hurting. Our heads are hurting. Our necks are hurting. Like it's the women who are being impacted by this. We went to the nearest village by that riverbed, but there were villages that were much further out that still have to walk every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, to get water and then carry it back. And the crazy thing is they're carrying this heavy water and it's full of diseases. There's typhoid, cholera, the water is dirty. So it's like, not only are they going through all this, but they're going through all this and feeding it to their babies, and they're women who are pregnant, and the water is not clean. So then, after we had our meeting, we got to tour the homestead, and that's a picture of, I believe it's pronounced Aboma, but it's made by the women, and the homes are made from a mixture of cow dung and mud. And the homes on the inside, they were so clean, like the women take a lot of pride in their homes. They were very clean and very nice. The Pokot community, they still practice polygamy. And so each house belongs to a wife. So this particular homestead, there were 4 wives. And yeah, so we got to tour that. So we can go to the next slide.
God be with you.
Amen. Thank you.
On the way back, so we left the village and then we walked back to our car. I was walking with a pastor in this village. His name was Pastor Jackson, and he asked that we would pray for him because he's hoping to start a church. He was saying how the community is just struggling a lot with not having access to water. There's one hospital, but it's very far and expensive to get treatments at. And he was telling us how there's been a drought, and so they hadn't had rain. The crops failed that year. And he said, we are completely dependent on God for everything. And so just talking to him really blessed me to know that there are people who are truly dependent on God for everything that they have. Okay, next slide. Day 3. So day 3, we went to Kodich, which is an orphanage, and we spent 2 days at Kodich. The kids who are here were just so beautiful, and they were there for, I'm going to try not, this kind of gets me. But they were there for lots of different reasons. Some kids were there because their parents just couldn't afford to keep them and take care of them. There were students who were there whose father was a drunk, killed the mother. There are students who have just lost their parents to sickness and diseases. There are girls there. So there's something called a rescue dorm here. So there are girls who have run away to escape female genital mutilation, which is something that's still prevalent in the villages, as well as early marriage. So this orphanage had a rescue dorm, and it was surrounded with barbed wire, and there was a security guard who would keep watch so that the girls could go someplace and stay in school and not have to endure those things. So during our time here, we did face painting with the kids, and the kids loved the face paint. They loved it so much that they were washing it off and getting back in line. So we were doing face paint for hours. And then at some point we're like, you look familiar. Weren't you just in line? So, but it was a lot of fun. It just means they enjoyed it. Next slide, please. We also did a lesson, and we talked about the fruit of the Spirit. And so the kids made bookmarks, and each bead was to represent a fruit. And then we made 2 crosses, and these crosses were made with their thumbprints, each color representing a fruit of the Spirit, one for the boys' dorm and one for the girls' dorm. And we also gave out jump ropes for the kids. So that was a lot of fun, just spending time with the kids. Okay, so day 4, we went to church. And that was such an amazing experience because the kids were singing for us. They were worshiping God. You know, despite all that they have gone through and been through, their faith is still very strong. So they were praising God. And then the pastor asked them what they wanted to give thanks for. And so the little kids were saying, you know, we thank God for having food. We thank God for Kodich. We thank God for our sponsors. We thank God. So the kids have this spirit of thanksgiving, which was really a blessing to see. And yeah, we sang together. So go ahead and play this. That was after service. So after church and all the festivities, and it was so cute because the kids, after we had service, they went and put on their like play clothes and went right back in the church and were worshiping and praising God. Afterwards, though, a few hours later, we had something called a chicken run. And the chicken run was a race to kind of show how in the States we have the Hope Water Project where people raise money to run, to connect that. And so we did the chicken run. And I did not want to participate in the chicken run. I told them, you know, I'm not going to run, you know, I'll just cheer and so on. But they kept saying, Courtney, just run. It's okay. You can walk, you can run, you can just go, just go. Can you put up those pictures? Yeah, so I was up there and I was trying to ask Eunice, like, how far are we going? Because I couldn't see, like, it was so far. So I'm asking, how far are we actually going? So we took off and I did my little best that I could do. I was so slow, you guys. I was so slow that Heather sent a car to come get me because she thought something was wrong. Like she thought I had fell out or something. So she sent a car to come pick me up. But I was like, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. So I made it back. I just didn't do well. But the winners received the chicken. That's why it's called the chicken run. So you see there, all the winners got a chicken. So that day, it was just so much fun. There were lots of laughs, and it was just a great time. Then, before we go to the next slide, the next day, we got to see them drilling for water. So the villages that we went to, we got to see like the big rig, and he was drilling. And so in the video, you'll see they hit water, and so the water is spraying everywhere, and the people are worshiping and praising God. So that's the next video. Even the workers are like praising God. Then we had our meeting, and these two people spoke. This woman on the left, she spoke about how she knows women who have had miscarriages because they're walking so far to get water, and it's so heavy that it's caused them to have miscarriages. So she was thanking God because she said, now our village will be strong, we'll have more babies, and like the future will be bright. This man in the middle, he was a teacher. So behind where we were, there was a school. And this man, he taught at that school, and he was telling us how at midday, the kids are crying because they're so thirsty and they're hot. And a lot of students leave early to go and help their families to get water. So he was saying, oh, also, they had a food service that was sent out to the school to cook lunch and things, but because there was no water, the food service was sent home. So this man, he was thanking God that now they have a well, and he was hopeful that more kids would come and that the school would be even more successful. And then I walked up and I was talking to some ladies, and I was telling them, you know, you all, your neck pieces are so pretty. And they took it off and they put it right on us. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And so we took a picture, couldn't keep it, but took a picture, and it was just really nice. And then, okay, so before we play the next video, we went to another village, and at this next village, they had just finished installing the well. And so this next video, you'll be able to see the men are trying to like get it going, and the women are worshiping. Then finally the water comes out, and there's like this huge celebration. So you can play the next video. It takes a lot of force to get it and we were all celebrating, all you saw were like these little orange shirts. It was so we're all celebrating, the well's right here, and you see like these little orange shirts bobbing through. And I looked, and it was kids, and they were coming from school. And it so happened, like, I don't know how they found out, I don't know what it was, but right when that water started going, it was like the kids just came. And so they came up, and the kids were able to have fresh water. And so that was just amazing to see. So those are the next pictures you see. The kids, they just came right up. They didn't ask any questions. They came right up to that well, and they got some water. So yeah, you can see all the kids there. And then we were able to try out the pump. And it does take a bit of force, but after a while it loosens up, so it'll be easier to move. Our last day on the ground, this was our turnover celebration. So this day we actually traveled to Uganda, and there were still Pokot people there. And this day, the well was being turned over to the community. So the well had been installed. There was a well committee now, and then there was a big celebration to turn the well over. We also got to talk with church planters and ministers for the Pokot people. This man in the middle, his testimony was so powerful because he was telling us how he used to be a thief and a robber. And he said, not only was I a thief, but I was also involved in witchcraft. So I would use divination to try to figure out who to rob, and people would come to me and ask me who they should hit. And that's how he made his money. But he got saved, turned his life over to Christ. None of these men went to school. None of these men knew how to read. They got connected with the Pokot Outreach Ministry. They learned to read, they learned the Bible, and they began to minister. And so that was just amazing to hear and be able to encourage them. They did ask for our prayers because they have hardships. It's hard to keep a steady congregation when water is not stable and people are moving about. So they did ask for our prayers. And then the next slide. The people, as they were welcoming each of us, they gave us a shukra and a headpiece and earrings. And so they were just very welcoming and loving. And we got to speak to them and tell them about the Hope Water Project and how we've raised money and just how people are praying for them and thinking about them. This man here, his name is Julius Morgor. And Julius, he started the Pokot Outreach Ministry. So he started the Pokot Outreach Ministry. Many years ago, he came to the U.S. for seminary, and while he was at seminary, he got connected with this man named Steve from Kensington Church, and then so that's how they were connected, and the Hope Water Project got started. So we got to meet, the founder, and so that was really special, and he blessed the well, and we just had a huge celebration. So those were our 6 days on the ground. Now, we also had a wonderful opportunity to have a little fun. So the next day we went to a safari. We went on a safari and we got to see lots of animals very close up, which was nice. We saw cheetahs and hyenas. We saw a lion. We saw my favorite, which are giraffes. We saw elephants and their babies. And then on the way back home, we had a layover in Paris. So we were able to stop and go see the Eiffel Tower. So, all in all, it was an amazing trip. It was truly life-changing. One of my biggest takeaways is the faith of the Pokot people, being able to trust God and believe God for miracles, not only receiving a well, but even just having food or having a crop, really just blessed me and inspired me and encouraged me in my own faith to trust God because He remembers us. And He knows our prayers and He knows the desires of our heart. So yeah, that was it.